welcome to another edition of We Are Indianapolis Veterans with Carlos May. My name is Carlos May. I work for Mayor Gregory Ballard here in Indianapolis. And as always, we like to bring information to those people who have served in the military, veterans, also their friends and family, and really anybody in particular who has an interest in the veteran community. We always like to invite a guest that represents an organization to talk about whatever services that organization has for the veteran community. So with that, let's dive right in. We've got our first guest from ESGR. Sir, how are you today?
Good, Carlos. How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing well. Likewise. So simple question I always ask everybody is, who are you and what do you do? So if we can start with that one.
I'm Charlie Russell. I'm a volunteer with ESGR, Employer Support of Guard and Reserve. I've been with ESGR over 20 years. Perfect.
Well, let's start with that then. Can you just please tell us about the ESGR agency? What do they do?
Well, back in 1972, 2 years prior to the elimination of the draft, the Defense Department recognized the utilization of Guard and Reserve forces was going to be increasing. With that, the Department of Defense recognized we can't use Guardsmen and Reservists unless we have the support of their employers. So in 1972, the USERRA law was passed, USERRA being Uniformed Services Employment Reemployment Rights Act, was passed in order to protect reserve component service members from discrimination from their employer.
Let me ask a question. Does this law, does it apply to all employers or
Yes.
just certain ones?
All employers, unless you're self-employed, then you might have a problem.
Certainly. So good, but just so I want the veterans to understand that really this is statewide, nationwide.
Federal, local, nationwide.
Perfect. Next question, and maybe this is a silly question on my part, but I just want to make sure everybody fully understands. Do employers always comply with the USERRA law?
Most often they do. There are human resources people, depending upon how large the company is, have people that are well aware of the USERRA law and its implications. We find most times when employers have a little trouble with it, they've either been misinformed, ill-informed, or they don't understand. That's where ESGR steps in and can help them.
Well, that begs a question then, and this is not one of the main ones, but I want to make sure. So ESGR is there to help not only the veteran, but also the company comply?
We are employer support.
So you work only with the employers?
Well, we work with the employers as well as the service members, as well as the families.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure the audience understood, that you weren't focused on one, but that you work with all of the parties involved, shall we say.
And in working with the employers, we have resources such as this Employer Resource Manual that kind of very clearly specifies what the law is and what they should do in order to comply with the law and support their employee who's a service member.
Excellent. But let me follow up on that question then. What if there is a problem? What can an employer or a service member do?
Well, if Johnny comes marching home and his employer says, Johnny, thank you for your service, but your job has been eliminated, then the service member can contact ESGR in a number of ways. The easiest is to esgr.mil. We have a website, and you can locate your state, and within hours, an ombudsman will be appointed to look into the issue.
Okay.
The ombudsman would contact the service member and then follow up, contact the employer, and find out if there's a remedy. Was the person eliminated due to a downsizing of the company across the board? Or did it look like the member was eliminated because of specific discrimination due to his military service? And it goes from there.
Okay. How often do these problems happen, if at all?
Well, over the past 13 years with the actions in Iraq and Afghanistan, utilizing over 900,000 guardsmen and reservists in that 13-year period, the issues with the ESGR or USERRA law ran about a total of about 6,000 a year. Now it's well under 2,000 because we're utilizing Guard and Reserve less since we've reduced the need for them.
So ESGR has been busy then, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's touch back on something you mentioned. You said if there is an issue, there is an ombudsman appointed. For the audience that's listening, an ombudsman is basically an individual who will almost act like a judge. They will work with the two parties to try to come to a resolution. But here comes my question. How is a final resolution gotten to if the ombudsman, if this mediator cannot sort it out? What's the process there?
Well, we make it real clear to our ombudsman that their role is not to be the judge. Their role is to be a mediator. They have no legal power, but most times the case can be solved by the employer having a little more information, or the service member having more information. If a resolution can't be sought or gotten, then the service member has the option to go to the Department of Labor, to the Veterans Assistance, and they can take it to a legal step.
Okay.
And there have been many cases over the years where the Department of Labor has done exactly that, where the employer can end up in court and be sued for discrimination.
And for the folks listening, we want to make sure, when you mention discrimination, you're basically saying that they have discriminated the fact that this individual is in the military and has gone to serve.
Right.
Okay, so we just want to focus that down.
And the discrimination could be reduction in pay, job reassignment, promotions passed over, any number of things.
Maybe less working hours that they get? Okay, okay. So it's not always just, I've been fired. It could be any of the things you mentioned.
Oh, yes.
So for the veterans that are listening, or friends and family of veterans that are listening, and you know that this has happened to a service member, this is the group that helps precisely that issue, correct?
Yes.
Good. I just want to make sure. Let's go back to the employer side of this real quick. Generally speaking, and I know every employer is going to be different, but generally speaking, are employers, do they just simply understand when one of their service member employees leaves, or are they glad that they get an opportunity to go serve? And what is that relationship like between the employer and the service member employee when they have to leave?
It varies.
Okay, I figured.
Having served 35 years in the military with the Air Force Reserve and now 20 years with ESGR, I've seen both sides of it. During economic times, in the Air Force Reserve specifically, where airlines were ready to lay people off and the employee could do service with the Air Force Reserve, the employer was glad to see them go because then they weren't fully retired. They had another option where they could go serve the country. Nowadays, where we have smaller companies of employees less than 30, to lose one or two can be critical to a company. So while they understand the law is the law, it can really be a hardship for the employer to find someone to fill in for the person while they're gone, to make decisions about what am I going to do when he comes back or she comes back. So we always say that not only does the service member serve, the employer serves. The amount of support employers give to the Department of Defense by supporting Guard and Reserve component forces is tremendous. That's why we use the acronym We All Serve.
That's a good one.
We cannot do it without employer support. We can't afford a large standing army, a military. It's too expensive. But we have been able to utilize reserve component forces to a maximum with employer support.
That's excellent. Let's continue on here. I've got a question when you're talking about the Guard and Reserve. What is it, just for general edification purposes of the audience, what is it that when all the Guard and Reserve, what do they do for the overall defense or the total force of the nation?
There are 7 reserve component forces.
Okay.
The most familiar is the Army National Guard and the Air Guard, which is part of the National Guard. Then there's the Air Force Reserve, the Naval Reserve, the Marine Reserve, and the Coast Guard Reserve. These 7 components are now doing over 52% of everything the Department of Defense missions. That's a lot of work.
That is.
It's easy for some reserve components, like the Air Force and the Air National Guard, to provide mission capability without utilizing a whole bunch of people. It only takes 3 people or 2 people to fly a KC-135, 2 pilots and a boom, 3. It only takes 5 people to fly a C-5 and so forth. So by using reserve components in small numbers, they've been able to maximize their utility. We even have here in Indiana, as you know, we have an Air Guard wing that does an intel wing that operates drones, that analyzes the data and passes it up through the chain of command. That's done by Air National Guardsmen, and it's a 24/7 operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people in the general public do not understand how much work the Guard and Reserve are doing. And it begs, and ESGR, we try to make this information available. We have programs called Boss Lift, where we take civic leaders, employers, and take them to places such as Atterbury, Muscatatuck Training Center, Grissom Air Reserve Base, Fort Wayne Air National Guard Base, and show people what reserve component forces are doing. And most employers come back with their eyes wide open and say, I had no idea.
I can imagine. So clearly then, the Department of Defense, they need the Guard and Reserve units.
Absolutely.
So because of that, does the DoD then recognize that the employers are cooperating, but also the sacrifices that they are making as business owners or companies?
Yes.
And then what is that relationship between the DoD and the employers?
ESGR is part of the Department of Defense Reserve Affairs.
Okay.
And we also have the Yellow Ribbon Program, which is for mobilization, demobilization of reserve component forces. That also comes under the Reserve Affairs in DoD. And in the program, we have awards where the service member can literally say, my boss really did a good job when I was on active duty for a year or so, supported me, checked on my family, and I want to recognize that. The service member can go to ESGR's website and ask that a Patriot Award be awarded to that employer.
Oh.
From there, it goes from the Patriot Award, the Above and Beyond Award, and it ends up at the 4th level of Freedom Award, which is granted to 16 companies, 16 employers, in August of every year at the White House. The initial award, the Patriot Award, looks like this.
It's a good looking award.
Given on behalf of the soldier or the military person, with the employer identified and so forth. Employers like these because it's a clear recognition that their sacrifice has been acknowledged.
The awards that you just mentioned given out at the White House, is this state by state? Is it the 16 or nationwide?
All of the
above.
States in the territories.
Okay,
yes.
But it's not, I guess, let me rephrase the question then. It is not, we must choose 3 from this side of the country, 3 from this side of the country. No. It's just, it is the top ones nationwide. There's
a Freedom Award committee that looks at the background and kind of digs into it to verify that, yes, this employer really stepped way beyond what was required by the USERRA law, and that's important.
That is.
Employees need to know that once their military time is served, they've done their duty, and go back home, that their job is there and that all is well.
And that's an excellent point, because I think part of the fear when they go abroad or when they're deployed to active zones is they might not know what the future holds for them when they come back home. And so ESGR seems to be a very critical component of that entire process of active military service.
Well, in our military outreach, ESGR briefs soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. We brief them up close and personal and tell them what the law is, what their responsibility is, and we always make sure that they know that they need to have a good relationship with their employer. Let their employer know when they're going to be deployed, let them know what their plans are when they're coming back, because we know if you have any emotional problems on your back, you're not going to be an effective soldier.
Correct.
It's not going to be in the best interest of you and your battle buddies. So we always tell in our briefings, talk to your employer, tell him what you're doing, what your responsibilities are in the military, and whether or not you're going to be activated, or it even looks like it, so that he doesn't get blindsided. And if they build a solid relationship, everybody's happy.
Excellent. Let me ask a question on the future. What does the future look like for the reserve components of the military?
Well, there's current talk in Washington now. The Air Force Association and the chiefs of staff are talking about even more effective utilization of Guard and Reserve in order to reduce the cost and to more effectively use reserve forces. It is a total force. And in my experience, I can tell when I see video on TV that that's not an Air Force airplane. That's a West Virginia Air Guard F-16. Those are Guard guys doing real-world missions. They use the term expeditionary forces, where the expeditionary force may have 2 components that are active duty and 5 that are reserve or Guard. So it's a total force concept. But again, we can't do it without the support of families and employers.
Well, and that was actually going to be my next question. How can the average citizen support ESGR and its mission?
Well, we have statements of support that average citizens can sign, saying they understand what the reserve component forces are doing, they understand the law, and they're in favor of it. We've had several thousand signed in the state of Indiana just since the first of the year. Last year we had about 9,000. Now we're already up to maybe 5,700. Statements of support from employers, citizens, politicians, organizations, corporate people, and so forth. That kind of support makes it easier for the reserve member. In terms of what the private citizen can do is to understand that your neighbor may be a member of the Guard and Reserve, and his family may from time to time need help, assistance, cutting the grass when Johnny's gone, and getting the car repaired when Mary Jane is doing an overseas tour. It's that kind of support.
Is there any way for me to volunteer to be one of the ombudsmen, or is that something that you internally hire? Okay, so there is volunteer opportunities for us.
On our website at esgr.mil, there's many tabs. One of them is for volunteers. You want to be a volunteer, it'll tell you who to contact in your state. There's a form you fill out.
Perfect.
If you want to be an ombudsman, we send you ombudsman training, and we'll have plenty of cases for you.
All right.
But we are looking for more volunteers, people to be involved. You don't have to have been in the military to be an ESGR volunteer. We'd like to have people who've been in business, who understand what it's like from the employer's point of view as well as from the military member's point of view.
And that makes perfect sense.
So we all serve.
That's right. We do all serve. And this actually segues perfectly into my next question. And maybe we could have touched on this at the beginning, but I prefer to touch on it towards the end. How can an individual, service member, an employer, how can we get a hold or get more information from ESGR? You've mentioned the website, but is there a phone number I can call? Is there an office location I can walk into? What is your contact setup here?
There are so many phone numbers all over the country that I always say esgr.mil.
Okay.
It'll tell you how, there's a contact tab. It'll show up all the states. You pick Indiana, and it'll give you 10 numbers or so. The ombudsman director, the state chair, we have a full-time program staff that kind of keeps the ball rolling through the week, and then the volunteers.
So best contact is
ESGR.mil. You can't go wrong.
Perfect. Well, let me finish it up with the final question, and this is really more of, is there any other information that you would like the audience to know? And keep in mind, there are veterans watching, these are friends and family of veterans that are watching, and there's just the average Joe citizen. But what else, what kind of final statement would you like to make to those watching?
Again, through the website, if you're an employer, you want to be a volunteer, you want to be an ombudsman, you're a service member, all the answers are there. We have lots of information for both sides of the story, and even for family members. and you can't go wrong by going to esgr.mil.
Excellent. Well, Charlie, thank you for being here. Thanks for explaining what ESGR does, where they help, and how we can get a hold of you. So thank you for your service and for continuing to volunteer and helping out.
I'm having fun.
Good. For those that are watching, this has been another edition of We Are Indianapolis Veterans. I've got two final comments for you. If you are a military member, if you've ever served in the military, or you are a friend or family member of someone who has served in the military, and you need more help, more information about what city services are provided for the veteran community, you can reach us directly at 327-3601. Again, 327-3601. Just mention you're a veteran and that you need to talk to someone within the office that helps veterans. Second item is those of you that might know of a homeless veteran, or if you yourself are about to become homeless, if you're couch surfing, so you think you have a house, but you're moving from couch to couch and friend to friend, we in the city of Indianapolis are here to help. We have the Home Initiative. You can dial one simple number 24 hours a day, immediately get connected to a live person who will then send you to the appropriate agency to help. That number is 327-4VET. Again, 327-4VET. This is a dedicated hotline specifically and solely for the homeless issue. So if you are a veteran who is about to become homeless, if you are currently homeless, or if you're a friend and family member of a veteran who you are worried might be homeless or become homeless, please dial 327-4VET. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next show of We Are Indianapolis Veterans.